Hey, this is the Baseball Show. We want to thank you for checking us out, tuning in, subscribing. The response has been phenomenal, so we appreciate everybody who's been checking these episodes out. Hope it's helping you to cut each player individually and add it to our player library. So you can make sure to go check that playlist and see whoever you were looking for individually of all the players we've covered to date to this point. And we'll be continuing to add to that all the way up through spring training. So today we have Volume 3, another 3 pitchers to talk about, to tell you about, and give you our opinions on. Again, we are just 2 guys who love baseball, fantasy baseball as well, and are probably reading and researching a lot more than the average guy. So we have some opinions on it, and that's it. And we're just trying to be helpful and share it. So this is in no way, shape, or form taking the approach that we absolutely will live and die by these statements, but we feel like we have a pretty good grasp on players. So without further ado, let's jump into 3 pitchers this week. We're going to talk about Robbie Ray, James Paxton, and Jose Berrios. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Diamondbacks lefty, Robbie Ray. He 6'2", 195-pound lefty, just turned 25 in October. Finished 32nd in ground ball percentage for 2016, but of those with 25% or greater K rate, only Noah Syndergaard and Chris Archer were better, and they're both righty. So Robbie Ray literally was one of the best left-handed pitchers you could find in all of the major leagues last year. However, the Diamondbacks only won 69 games. He finished 40th in run support with 4.7 per game, so he had a lot of bad luck working against him. Some of the things, actually probably the biggest thing to point towards as far as his K rate or K numbers, which may seem like a little bit of an outlier, was his 11.6 swinging strike rate, which tied him for 12th in all of baseball as well last year. So there's reason to believe that this is all legit and he's putting it together. I'm liking Ray a lot going forward. He's one of the young, intriguing power arms. As a lefty, he's going to get some time. I don't want to talk Ralph out of the building or out of the video, so let me turn this over and see what Mr. Lifshitz has to say about Robbie Ray. But he's somebody I definitely am fully on board with going forward.
Yeah, and I am too. Definitely a fan of Ray. As you mentioned, had the huge jump in terms of swing and miss stuff last year. Was throwing just as many balls in the zone. Hitters are making contact with just as many balls in the zone. We're swinging at just as many balls in the zone. What happened was they were missing the ball far more often when they were when they were swinging. As you mentioned, the 11.6% jump. There was a 2.6% jump over the year before, which he had about 9% swing strike rate. So there was the swing and miss stuff that made a huge difference there. The big one, obviously, is the K per 9. That's where it showed up. Went from an 8.3 guy in 2015 to 11.2 in 2016. The one thing that I do see that I don't love with Ray is his breaking pitch command. He doesn't necessarily always throw his secondary stuff in the zone. He actually had one of the worst strike percentages amongst his breaking pitches in the major leagues last year. If he's going to make that jump up, and it's one of the reasons that he kills you in ERA. If you look at his ERA, I think it was 4.67. Obviously, the outliers, the FIP, the XFIP says that he's really a sub-4 guy. Let's hope that he is. But I think the big difference there is him actually throwing more of those for strikes, which in turn will probably get hitters to chase those balls out of the zone even more. So, hopefully the swing and miss stuff is legit. And if he's able to maintain that, he could be sort of the Danny Duffy of 2017.
Yeah, we've commented off air between you and I a lot about how just disorganized and dysfunctional the Diamondbacks have been over the last couple of years. Hopefully they're getting things together and righting the ship, but they've basically given away top prospects for nothing. They've not developed pitchers well. We all look at Goldschmidt as one of the greatest players in baseball and think that, hey, Arizona might not be that bad. Chase Field is known to be a good hitter's park, everything like that. But really, there's not much there outside of Goldschmidt. So with Robbie Ray, you got a young, power, left-handed arm that, as I said, just turned 25 in October. So he's going to be 25 the entire 2017 season. And the upside is there. And again, I think a lot of it had to do with poor luck more so than all on Ray's shoulders. I think he's an emerging pitcher, and he's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But like you said with Danny Duffy, he's going to get close to he's going to get close to 200 innings if he doesn't surpass them this year, and the strikeouts are going to be there as well. So I'll live with a little bit of a high ERA rate. I will concede some of the wins based on um, you know a poor supporting cast in the desert. Uh, because if you're giving me a baseline of a solid pitcher that's going to put up, good numbers that you want in fantasy, with the added bonus that the wins could come, that's pure upside for me, and I'm totally digging that.
Yeah, start with strikeouts, man, and just go with everything else after that. But strikeouts are most important. That's what I'm targeting most in drafts, because the rest of the stuff a lot of the time is just luck and when the balls drop and all that sort of stuff. But this guy is at 3.7, 3.8 ERA, and he puts up the K numbers he put up last year. Then he's an ownable pitcher in all formats.
I 100% agree. So we in on Robbie Ray. That probably wasn't the best way to end that one, but I'll cut that out. All right, let's move into another lefty, and I almost feel like we should have Lord Beddict on to discuss this guy. I'm talking about James Paxton. I really don't know what to make with James Paxton. There's a lot to like, and there's also a lot to dislike with Paxton.
Sure.
Last year, he hit a career high 121 innings in the majors. He's got a total of 286 in 4 seasons. I mean, the guy is already, 28? And It just seems like the clock is ticking way too fast on this guy's career for somebody that we had a lot of promise in. Now, adding to the disappointments with Paxton, I personally feel like the Mariners overhype their prospects and do a poor job developing them. So the track record is there to see that all these guys we thought were going to be superstars bottomed out, or just average or decent players at that. So Paxton, I think, is a little bit can buck that trend a little bit, but to this point, he hasn't really delivered on it. Mostly because of health, more so than talent and stuff. But speaking of the stuff that there is to like and actually kind of love about Paxton, he went from throwing his cutter roughly 5% of the time to it jumped up to 15% in 2016. He changed his arm slot, got a little lower with it, added velocity. I'm talking like 2 miles per hour on his fastball, more velocity. His swing and strike rate was up to 12%. Like I said, he really did a lot to kind of redefine himself as a pitcher. And this is kind of that age where we've seen other pitchers take enormous leaps from being kind of somebody we were hoping for, maybe not panning out, to, wow, look at this guy, we shouldn't have written him off yet. So I'm curious what you think about Paxton. Is he somebody that you're really going all in on? Because he's going in the range of Carlos Rodon, Sonny Gray, who we've covered, and Robbie Ray, who we just spoke about. He's going in that territory right now for ADP. So is that somebody you're willing to make an investment on?
Yeah, and I would say of that group, he's the one I'm probably most likely to draft at that spot. Though Sonny Gray would be tempting. I know God strike me dead with all the hate that we got for the Sonny Gray love last week. I'm still sticking by it. But enough about Sonny Gray. As for Paxton, I love him. Lefty, has that big fastball, can hit 97, 98. So he's throwing upper 90s with the fastball. And as you mentioned, it's a great point. He started mixing in the cutter more. And that cutter is actually his best pitch. When you look at pitch values, it was almost a 10, on a Fangraphs rating scale, which is great. So it's a great secondary pitch from the mix, with the change. And I believe he throws a curveball as well. So he's got a good arsenal there. The biggest issue with him has always been health. The production's always been good when he's been up and making his starts. Obviously, 121 innings, was a career high. I think he probably pitched 20 to 30 innings in the minor leagues. So, if next season he can get to 160, 170, 180 innings even, I think 180 is about as much as you could hope for. You could, certainly be looking at significantly, next level production from him, just in terms of the counting stats and all that sort of stuff, because the peripherals have always been there. He's always had a decent K per nine, somewhere in the 8s or the 9s, and he's got excellent control. I think if you look at what his control, what his walks per nine were last year, somewhere right under 2, I think it was 1.8. Just goes to show you that sort of elite Phil Hughes kind of control. Hopefully he can end up with better results than Phil Hughes.
Well, that just also goes to show you that that kind of control doesn't necessarily make for a great pitcher. But as you said, I mean, everything with Paxton looks good, but the innings. And, it's kind of unfair to say, and I don't want to draw this comparison too much, but when we talk about hitters, when we talk about Giancarlo Stanton and Mark Trumbo, we're talking about Trumbo might be the safer pick just because he's going to give you similar production to what Stanton's done to this point in his career because he's been able to stay healthy for larger parts of the season.
Absolutely.
When you're talking about a guy like Paxton and a guy like Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray's already done it at least once. He's gotten 170 innings, and there's room and hope and belief to think that he can do at least that, if not add to that. Paxton hasn't done it once yet, so until he does it, it's kind of unfair. But if you got to take a choice between the two, while he looks phenomenal, it's going to be potentially a wasted roster spot. So, but it really, more than anything, speaks to being another prime example of how and why you can and should wait on starting pitching in the draft this year. Because you start getting to the rounds we're talking about, the pitchers in the 40s through 60s and 70s, and there's a ton of value there. So don't feel like you have to reach for pitching this year.
Yeah, and I think these are two great examples of that, especially when you mentioned. I think everybody that we've pretty much talked about on the show has been, from Duffy to Sonny Gray, right on through here. You got to look for guys that were either hurt and they had a prior track record, like somebody like Sonny Gray, or people that made big jumps in terms of swinging strike rate and some of those underlying stats that people can't see unless they're really digging into the numbers. And obviously, Ray and Paxton are both examples of that.
Right. And, to that end, another guy that we're going to discuss right now, the youngster, he's going twice as far down the list as the other guys we just talked about. He's going currently as the 106th starting pitcher off the board. Talking about Jose Berrios, this guy can easily outperform that draft position. If you don't want him, I'll gladly take him off your hands and put him on any one of my fantasy rosters. He's always been well above a K per 9. He's always been well under a 3 ERA. Some people have height concerns for him because he's only about 6 feet. So is he tall enough to get enough good, plane and downward, trajectory on his pitches to really be elite at the major league level? I see somebody that was, he's young. He was young for the level. He was young for the majors in his call-up. He's going to figure it out. If I'll point to one of his teammates real quick, who was another elite prospect that everybody soured on, and now everybody's kind of jumping back on the bandwagon, and that's Byron Buxton, of course. Sometimes these guys take a little while to figure it out. This kid is still just 21. I'm sorry, he'll be 23 in May. He's 22 right now. He'll be 23 for this entire 2017 season. Give him a chance. He's going to figure it out, and when he does, I'm willing to bet if you held on to him and believed in him, he's going to reward you. Are you off the Berrios bandwagon, or are you feeling what I'm saying and thinking people are being too quick to write this guy off?
Yeah, I think people are way too quick to write this guy off. The Twins have done a really good job of rushing their prospects over the last couple of years, Buxton being the prime example. Then we have Berrios. When I look at Berrios, watch him pitch, if you look what his production was in AAA last year with Rochester, he still shows ace upside to me. This is a guy that, hits the, close to double digits somewhere in the 9 to 10 K per 9, good control somewhere, always in the low to mid 2s in terms of walks per 9. That's an elite split right there. That's somebody with good control, but can also miss bats. That means he's got great stuff and he's got good, pinpoint accuracy. Unfortunately, he had none of that while he was in the majors. He seemed to be leaving a lot of the stuff up. He just wasn't the same guy that he usually was. I think he made 13 or 14 starts. And, quite honestly, I think we can throw it out. He was 21, 22 years old. He's going to be 23. I'm willing to give him another shot.
And, speaking to what you were saying about him just looking like a different pitcher, he does have velocity. His fastball velo was at 93.4 last year, and it was 13 or 14 starts he made. He has excellent control, as you mentioned, and he only threw his fastball 64% of the time. He mixed in the curve 22% of the time and the changeup 14% of the time. So That's just way too much breaking stuff for a guy who can throw with, high velocity and great control of those pitches. If he gets that fastball rate up, I think you'll see him go back to what he was and putting up the kind of numbers he was as a minor leaguer, which is another reason I say just give him time, figure it out. Believe me, guys, much smarter than Ralph and I are digging into what he did in 2016, going, how do we translate this to the majors now? And it will happen. Again, starting pitcher 106 currently in NFBC ADP data. That is just way, 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 way too down the road for a guy who likely can make 25 starts or more in the majors this season. I'm all in on Jose Berrios. I think I'm all in on Robbie Ray and James Paxton. I won't fault you for taking them, but those are 3 more guys this week that we think you should definitely be taking a look at. And turn it over to Ralph to exit with any other comments.
Yeah, I think, you hit the nail on the head. 3 good names. We're going to keep them coming throughout the offseason. But these are all 3 players that are definitely going to be in a lot of my fantasy rosters, especially leagues that are pitching heavy.
All right, so thanks for tuning in. Like I said, don't forget, check our player library. You can find each individual player we've covered in our 2017 primer. Just go through, usually navigate and find your guy. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks for tuning in.